pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh my God, I felt like I just rolled.
Just a few notes before we begin. This meeting is being taped for TCTV Local Channel 8. If anyone else is taping, please raise your hand to let us know if you are recording. I see nobody. Comments are only allowed during the public comment section of the meeting for the benefit of those watching at home and the board. Anyone wishing to comment at that time will need to come to the front table, sit where the microphone is in order to speak. Anyone wishing to be acknowledged by the board should raise their hand and wait to be called on. This keeps the meeting orderly and allows the business at hand to be completed. Times will be kept to a minimum, so our regular business may be attended in a timely manner. We thank you for your cooperation. At this time, any public comments? Yes, sir. Identify yourself for the record, please.
I will.
Thank you.
Robert May, 137 Shady Lane, Templeton, Mass. Hello, everyone.
Hi, bro.
I'm basically here, I was looking at the agenda and I noticed an item which I don't have the number on, but it's the Infield Groomer, which I believe might be I.
G.
G? Thank you. And looking at the backup paperwork, my concern is that this is different than was presented to the planning, to the capital planning board. It's a completely different machine, it's a different setup, across the board. Some of the justification for the machine that we were talked about at capital planning is in direct conflict with the machine that is now on the boards, and I'll refer to February 23rd, 2018 letter from Alan, which, you know, it states about 975 hours being saved because it states before that they did it all by hand, which I've been told since was in error, that they didn't do it by hand before and that savings is actually moot. As far as the hours go. But at the bottom of this, it says, the present machine does minimal mowing and snow blowing. Those tasks would be accomplished utilizing a tractor and a bucket instead of snow blowing. The mowing would be accomplished by a much faster zero-turn machine. And the thing that we're purchasing is the X750 John Deere, which is a glorified lawnmower. It's a lawn tractor, lawnmower. It's got a 3-point hitch on the back, and we're purchasing, I believe, a Ron Infield Groomer attachment is the methodology that's being proposed in the purchase here. But that is, again, that is not what was presented. The John Deere 1200A, which is a bunker infield groomer, that's the name of the machine, was what was presented. It was initially presented as a $22,000 machine. After some refining to the capital planning and more discussion with Alan, when he finally came through, he thought he could get it for around 15, but he was sure it would be between 15 and 18. And, you know, just for some more backup, that this machine that we're looking at is, well, I would not have approved it through capital planning. This machine, and for all the reasons stated here, it says also trading in the other underutilized piece of equipment. So the piece of equipment that we've been using for this task, he's calling underutilized, and this is Carter calling it this. This is my return response from the administration. It says underutilized piece of equipment. It seems, you know, to me, this is not what I approved. This is not what I put my signature alongside on capital planning. So I don't know the process. I don't know what the parameters are, the guidelines as far as what, you know, everybody has to abide by. But I just wanted the board to be aware that this was not what was presented to capital planning, and this was not what was approved by capital planning, and it is not the same machine. it has some overlap, but it is not the same machine. It's almost like, you know, saying you need an excavator and somebody coming back with a backhoe. You know, yeah, they both dig, but they're not the same machine. I just wanted you to be aware of that before the vote today, because I think, you know, I know information doesn't always get passed along as it could, should, whatever the case may be. But I do think, you know, we have apples and oranges here.
Okay.
Just my 2 cents.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. May?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would respectfully ask the board not to comment back, and we can, when we get to the point of the first item, we can just pull that and we'll have the discussion at that point. Pull that to the front.
On G?
Yep.
Okay.
Will you be staying for the meeting, Mr. May?
Okay, that'd be great.
Sure.
Any other public comments?
Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. May. Any other public comments? I see none. Meeting minutes for 6/11/2018.
So we have minutes for 3 meetings.
Yes.
Has everybody had an opportunity to read them all?
6/11, 6/25, and 7/11.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of June 11, 2018, June 25th, 2018, and July 11th of 2018 as written.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion, second. Any other further discussion? I see none. Cam?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Executive session minutes for 7/11/2018.
I make a motion to approve the executive session minutes of July 11th, 2018 to be released in their entirety.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? I see none. Cam?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
I say, did you forget me?
Nope. Couldn't do that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to call out item G to the front, out of order.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or concern with that? Diane? Doug? Okay, let's move G to number 1. Let's talk about G.
So my first question would be, who initiated the change from what was presented to capital planning to what's being requested now?
Be happy to answer that. When it came time to begin to try to make the capital purchases for this year, I had requested the staff to give me what the initial presentation had been based upon. The down at Highway and up here, they weren't able to get it to me. We did reach out to Padulas, who had no recollection of conversing on the former superintendent on this. So we had a job meeting with them, had and presented what our needs were. They then sent back new quotations on equipment that they thought would do the work. Rick Moulton was present. This is similar to what I believe they're using for the softball fields at this point. Thought that it would do the job very nicely at a substantially lower cost. Rick met with the Recreation Commission. I don't know how many members of the commission, but certainly the chairman was here and happy to answer any questions you might have, who was more than satisfied with the proposal. It being, not being able to find exactly what Alan had presented, being presented with items that everyone was satisfied would do the job at a substantial savings. That's when we brought it forth to you, and Scott Dill's happy to answer any questions. I don't want to speak for him, but I think he'd be happy to answer any questions for you.
Okay, I didn't bring any of my capital planning notes with me. Bob probably has all the numbers. What was the amount we approved for that groomer?
The amount we approved, I believe, was
Yeah, I didn't
15,000,
bring it with me.
and I believe that's actually listed here on the budget. It's got the infield groomer deferred, $15,000, 5,000 being paid for by, at this point, by the Templeton Light, and then 10,000 free cash for the overlay.
Mhm. Yeah, so this isn't substantially less, it's a little
No.
bit less.
It's actually more.
Yeah, it's actually more, isn't it? Yeah.
No, the groomer part itself is substantially less. It's about $3,500. And then we have a retrofit costs and some refurbishing of the other piece of equipment that's going to haul it. So it's on the order of $10,000 less.
So did we also have in there then these tractors?
Yes. And that one was actually, Alan had proposed it at, I think, $8,500. And that turned out not to be accurate once we got the final quotes from Padula.
So, I was gonna say, all I know is that the X750 and the 1200A are about $3,500 difference in price. The 1200A does come with built-in units that are part of that attachment, so I don't know the exact breakdown on, the dollars, because parts of this are already built into this, and then there's additions to this, and, I'm sure, and what it sounded like is that when Alan initially got the price on that 1200A, he got it, loaded up at $22,000, and then started chipping away on it when we were asking questions about it, and looking at the attachments more finely, with a little bit finer tooth, and came down to that 15, 18 number. He was using a, it was a $5,000 or $10,000 number for the trade-in on that, the present, 748 or something that we have now that is doing the job now, I guess. But that's all. I know, it just seems like a different quality of machine to me. It seems like we're trying to make a machine rather than get the machine.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Padula Brothers is a reputable company who has been around for many, many years and stands behind their equipment.
They were selling the other machine too.
Okay, so if we're getting a piece of equipment that, Mr. Jill, may I ask Mr. Jill to come and
Sure.
sit up front, please? And Rick Moulton knows exactly what he's talking about, based on his years of experience and the Rec Commission also. Could you
Yep.
give us some idea of what was discussed?
Pretty much we came into it after Alan had departed the town, so we really didn't have any paperwork to go off of any, it was.
Was there paperwork to begin with?
You guys got paperwork at the
At the
board,
capital planning, right?
What kind of paperwork?
Yeah,
What
Nothing was
kind
really
of?
set in stone.
quotes
I
like
believe
There
that.
was
Alan had
no quote-
quotes on
there was quotes
everything
like
that he
this?
Yeah.
submitted to us, which was fairly typical for Alan, always having quotes
Mhm.
with everything.
Okay,
Yep.
so,
And you had a quote for the 1200A?
I believe, he had a quote for the infield groomer. He didn't have a
So how
number on
can-
it. He called it an infield groomer at the time.
Okay.
When I was doing my own research, I had determined that 1200A was what they called it. I asked Alan, he confirmed. That's how that.
Okay.
In simplest terms,
Yeah.
we had $23,000 roughly to buy two pieces of equipment. The final quote at the end of the day for the tractor, lawn tractor, was more than Alan had requested and been budgeted. We were able to buy a piece of equipment as an infield groomer for less than Alan had requested, in a manner that Scott and the commission and Rick Moulton, upon his advice, are comfortable or going to do the job for a good period of time, for a total of roughly $16,000. So it is slightly different equipment. It is a slightly different configuration. Interestingly, when we spoke with Padula, they couldn't find in their system or didn't have recollection of it. So unfortunately, Alan's departure was a great loss because we were not able to reconstruct all that history, despite having reached out to a couple of folks.
But if we had had quotes like this from Padula, all we would have had to do was fax it to him.
Yes, that's when they sent us this.
Okay.
It's a slightly different configuration of equipment that will meet our needs for $7,000 less than was budgeted.
Yeah, they buy one separate.
And the piece of equipment, I mean, we're starting from ground zero. We've never had equipment to groom. There's lawn mowing equipment that the town parks uses, but there's no grooming equipment. That was done by hand with a homemade rig that Alan had made years ago. So that was our groomer. We attached it to a golf cart, whatever we could pull it with. So that, there is gonna be hours saved. And it's not the 900 that they originally projected, but there'll be hours saved. Because there's no grooming, there was never any grooming done by the Parks Department. It was always done by recreation or volunteers that would go rake those fields by hand or pull that sled around or whatever we had to do. But there was no tractor attachment, no grooming equipment at Gilman Waite or any park.
Excuse me.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. May.
If I may. I'm sitting here and I'm getting disgusted now, because now I'm being told, and because and Mr. Terenzini will confirm this, I'm sure. Because after this was presented at the budget conference here, I questioned, and the email was, I believe, March 13th or something like that, April, whenever it was. But I questioned this, and I got a updated version. That's what this letter that I presented a partial statement from was in response to, was my query. And I got, an updated letter thing with statements here for hours saved and all this that was redone after my inquiry. And it's all bullshit, excuse my French, but, it is.
Well, that was English, but I got you.
Well, yeah, but it's perfect English, actually, but,
We can refrain just a little bit.
yeah.
Thank you, sir.
But I will, and I excuse, but,
Where did that?
we were told,
Listen, I got you.
Okay.
I got you.
Because
I
it's
got you loud and clear.
okay.
And I got you. And, but the rest of the board's gonna have some questions. And at the bottom line, I think Mr. Tenzini said it right. I mean, obviously, it's from the March meeting until now, obviously, things have changed dramatically to us. As far as Alan's departure, as far as, things that aren't being, things that were done or weren't done, things that were discussed that weren't discussed, hours that were supposedly done and hours that maybe not being done. The bottom line is you're towing around a piece of something that was made to Infield Groom, correct?
By hand, yeah.
And how much is this saving the taxpayers?
Well, it's $7,000 difference, and I don't want to throw any current or former employees under the bus. They were long, dedicated employees. They did their best. They put everything together. We relied upon that. But when we went to buy the equipment, we simply found, after some lengthy discussions with the vendor, and with the advice of someone I have some faith in, Rick Moulton sold this kind of equipment for 30-plus years. We found a different combination of equipment that is going to do the things we told people we were going to do and saves $7,000.
Okay.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
something, yes.
Yeah, so let me start with the precedence here. If we pass this and we say, okay, that's fine, because it went to the capital planning committee, we have a question here that the capital planning committee is saying that this is not what they received and they signed off on it. Any capital purchases need to be signed off by the capital planning committee. Now, they're reasonable. They wouldn't come here with issue if it wasn't a reasonable purchase. But if we're giving them something that's not reflected with what we're approving, then there's a breakdown in that process. Now, I'm sure if we sent this back to them, they would review it and sign it and give it back to us. So if we pass this tonight, the precedence is we can send them whatever and their signatures don't matter. So what's the point of having a capital planning committee? Number two here is I see this expiration date is August 1st. So, and it was created July 1st. Now, who created the purchase order or the quote?
Padulas.
Padulas, okay. And so when was this inquired on?
We worked on this over June.
Yep.
Okay, so in June, so they created our PO, and so who did this purchase order here go to in that time? It went through the recreation committee?
It probably came to me, and then it was reviewed, sent to Highway, and probably the Rec Commission for final
Rick?
review, and I probably talked with Rich Casey to make sure that everybody was happy and had signed off.
So we had to sign off on something that is being disputed that was not signed off on or it was not the document that they signed off on. So I see two things here that's problem. A, this isn't what was approved, and B, we need to fill something in here so that if something comes to the capital planning committee or any of these other boards, we have the approvals expressly written on what is being approved. So if this were to go to the capital planning committee, the document, the purchase order, something on top of that saying they signed off, the rec department signed off, and then it comes to us. And that way, there's no dispute on this. I personally don't feel comfortable if somebody from the capital planning committee is questioning it and somebody else on the capital planning committee doesn't remember the dispute. I just don't think that's good practice. I don't think that's best practice, and that leaves gaps in this community for just doing whatever we want. And I don't feel comfortable. That's my piece on the issue.
So when's the next capital planning committee meeting?
They can be held at any time.
So we send it back?
So I don't
And we
really
have-
believe there's any dispute. I think it's just what was presented and what's here now are different. But the fact that the capital planning approved, yes, we need an infield groomer, and we approved X number of dollars for that, this solution still provides for an infield groomer. So we're satisfying what was approved, and it's for a lesser dollar amount. Now, if it was for more money, I would have 100% agree that
Do
it's
you
got to
guys
go
approve on the
back to.
purchase order level, or do you just
No,
approve
no,
on
no,
the asset
we
itself?
purchase on the equipment and the value.
Okay.
So it's just like if somebody had asked for a Ford pickup, capital planning's not gonna say, oh, you, in your quote, it had, red seats and a blue paint job, and now the one you're buying's a white truck with black seats.
Well, that's cosmetic.
Again, it's not like we approved an infield groomer and we're now buying a dump truck with that money that
Well,
was applied to a.
You're actually not buying an infield groomer, you're buying a tractor with an infield groomer attachment. You were told you were gonna purchase an infield groomer, which this is, I just wanna point this out, that, this is the piece of equipment that you guys had signed off on, which is an infield groomer. And the other one that you're buying is a ride-on lawnmower with a groomer attachment. So there is a difference between the two that's signed off. Now, if you guys are approving, and this is something that I don't know personally, I'm not involved in the capital planning side. If you guys are approving on the asset, like a fire truck, are you just filling the role of what a fire truck does, or are you purchasing a fire truck?
No, we're not gonna go out and spec out, these are the things the fire truck needs. We're going to say, yes, the community needs a fire truck, and yes, we're going to recommend that we spend $500,000 on this.
So you're just approving the total dollar value to spend on the item, not the actual item itself?
Correct.
All right, then.
It seems like, I'm sorry,
Yes,
through the
go ahead.
chair,
Yes.
based on what I'm hearing from Doug and based on what I'm hearing from Mr. May, those opinions don't match.
Right.
They're going along with what Mr. May is mirroring what Selectman Forts is saying. Like you're buying a tractor with an attachment, like Mr. May is saying you're buying an excavator or instead of a backhoe.
Well, it's, and I just
You
speak
have to-
because she was
through the
looking at me,
chair.
I mean, if it,
She's got the
But-
floor.
Yeah, but it's, it is like Cam just stated. One is a piece of equipment that is a groomer. The other one is a tractor with a groomer attachment. So the groomer attachment is really $3,200. So that's the groomer part of this $16,000 deal that we're actually buying. So we're getting a $3,200 groomer, not a $16,000 or $22,000 groomer. There is a difference. And I'm not trying to say there's anything, whatever. I'm just saying that this isn't what I signed off on. My intended sign off on capital planning was solely on this, truthfully, was on this. The hours saved. And that's why my dander's a little up now, because the hours saved is a kind of a wash, so, but these pieces of equipment are different, and they are different significantly. And it is very much like an excavator and a backhoe, and I don't mean, that everybody understands that, but they are completely different machines. They both dig, but that's about as far as it goes.
I got you.
I'm not finished.
Yes, go ahead.
So, but hours will be saved because there are people who are dragging this piece of equipment around by hand, and they're not gonna have to do that now.
They still will be. They're dragging the other piece of equipment with the same damn tractor,
By hand.
with the tractor.
Some people are doing it by
They
hand.
were doing it with a tractor or a,
Golf
We
cart.
had no golf cart that
yeah,
broke down,
golf
but.
cart or whatever.
But
Well,
that's-
I'm not saying that was great, and I'm not saying that's good.
Could I
I'm not
ask
defending.
Mr. Dills to speak?
It's apples and oranges, what we're doing now and what we wanna do going forward. So grooming is an art. It's not just dragging a fence around a field. There's leveling, there's all kinds of techniques that level fields. And what we're getting, and for the cost savings we're saving the town, I think it's a win-win. Yeah, it's a tractor pulling a groomer, but the groomer attachment, like Rick Moore and I spent many hours with Rick, and he sold us to Fenway Park. He sold us stuff. That's what he did. And they're gonna retrofit this tractor with a groomer that's gonna be on this $22,000 machine for half the cost. And they're gonna retrofit it to this tractor and do the same exact thing for half the cost.
And we're
Which is-
still gonna be able to use the tractor to do other things.
It can be retrofitted with a mowing deck, a plow. It's a John Deere intercooled 750 tractor. It's
And does it have this is a
gonna have the
tractor that we already
electronics
own.
built in.
This is a tractor that we already own. Can I just be clear? I just wanna,
It is.
we already have other parts that can go on it?
And
Well, I see that as a win-win.
So it's a multi-use tractor
Yep.
with an additional attachment for the infield groomer.
Right. The
So
groomer will be
I-
a piece of equipment that's retrofitted to this machine. All hand controls will be up front, all electronically controlled. Everything that thing does, but and that's a big win to get it at that price. I know it wasn't presented to the capital planning that way, but when you're going down instead of going up, that's a win. It's gonna do the same work.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I want to say I don't dispute the purchase. I dispute the process that's,
Right.
that's taking place. And the process here is, since it's,
Doug is saying that they don't do all the
Well,
plans
that's my
and
opinion.
specs.
I
Well,
mean, the
that's-
capital planning is 5
okay,
people,
yeah.
and my opinion is, we're ending up with a piece of equipment that's doing the same function, and we're spending less money. So in my opinion, it doesn't really need to go back to capital planning, and I don't believe we're violating what capital planning presented as a need of the town to satisfy. But again, that's my opinion.
Mr. Chairman.
There are 5 people on the committee that may all have different opinions.
Mr. Foyce.
So I would be proposing here then that we approve this and send it back to the capital planning committee. If you guys can schedule a meeting relatively soon, I don't know who's the chairman is, I believe you're the chairman. If that's possible, so we can get this purchase order out the door, but I would also like to propose that perhaps we get a change here, that if any of these capital purchases go through the capital planning committee, that you guys discuss amongst yourselves of how that process is
Now
supposed
that
to
we
work.
know that this might happen.
Yeah, because if you guys are purchasing equipment like this fire truck here, yes, it satisfies you guys are willing to spend $400,000, but once again, you'll run into the issue of Bob's analogy here is that, if you're buying an excavator but we come back with a backhoe, it's effectively doing the same role, but they're not the same piece of machinery that was agreed upon, so there might need to be
Committee,
a
though,
process
the capital
change.
planning committee just makes recommendations to this board
Mhm.
for this board to make the
We-
purchase.
and we
Capital
approve it.
planning isn't making this purchase.
No,
We're
and I
saying that
understand
we're
that.
buying item serial number XYZ 4567.
But as an advisory role, I would feel much more comfortable taking their advice if it was what was presented. That's the piece that I'm kind of getting into, is that if we're to make a recommendation, or get a recommendation, it should be on what
Oh,
I'm fine
was
with
provided.
John.
Yes, Mr. Tanzini.
I just think, I'm not completely clear as to whether or not we're trying to turn the capital planning committee into a capital purchase committee.
Right.
And I think you need to have that discussion. So,
Yeah,
for
planning.
instance, 6 weeks ago, you approved a $2 million and change contract on the police department. There was no discussion that, wait a minute, you presented us a plan that has a cupola or whatever, this doesn't have a cupola. You
Right.
presented us a plan that has a sally port, this doesn't have a sally port.
Right, we didn't
So,
discuss it then. and
When
that's
the
expensive.
purchases are carrying out the stated purpose within budget, I think there's a good reason for the staff to feel that they're operating within the information that was given. Certainly, we can always provide better information. Some of this was put together with the department head in pretty short order. But I do just want to be careful about what we're going back on and why we're going back on it, and what authority, if any, we're giving the committee to sign off on it.
Yeah.
So
Thank
again,
you.
I mean, the committee's
planning,
already
not
reviewed that the
purchasing.
town has a need for a groomer. And we presented or recommended
Yes.
a dollar amount that the Board of Selectmen spend on capital. So this is still getting a groomer, and it's still spending the capital that was recommended.
Thank you.
So, again, and just the whole scenario with the police station, I mean, that's a perfect example. It's the exact same thing, basically. It is. I mean, we're still getting a
Function
police
is
station,
different.
but
Yeah, we have
Function
to
is
start
different.
doing like this.
Function of a police station where the cupola isn't. Just saying. It's a function difference. And as a taxpayer, it's a value difference. And we're keeping the other tractor, from what I hear now, which we were trading in the plan. So, I mean, why bother?
I think it
That's basically my opinion of the whole thing right now.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think it raises a question if the capital planning committee were to see something that was supposed to last 40 years and we plug a hole with a 5-year commitment and say that the capital planning committee had signed off on this 5-year Band-Aid solution, and we say that fills that 40-year planned capital expense. I think you start to enter some really gray territory, and I think that just needs to be hammered out. So, once again, I agree with the purchase. The procedure seems to be lacking, so we might need to come up with some sort of resolution to make sure that issues like this don't happen in the future, and that we can have a reasonable tolerance for stuff like this that comes up.
Understood. Yes.
And I have no problem at one of their early capital meetings going back in and saying, okay, here's the process you ran, here's some of the realities that happened during the purchasing process. To what extent, if any, would you like to have some involvement in that, so that we can, iron that out in the future?
Okay.
And then, Doug and his committee can, give us some advice, and we can work out something that can become part of their procedures that would perhaps address your concerns without being constraining on the other side of things.
I think it's just, at this point, it's precedence, and I'd rather not fall down what Templeton does when it sets precedence and stuff just kind of collapses in on itself. So if we can just get ahead of this now and take the proactive choice in the response to this and just figure out, we charge the capital planning committee, we give them charge? Or
It's a bylaw.
it's a bylaw. So at that point then, we adhere to the bylaw, whatever that says.
I make a motion to approve the purchase of a John Deere tractor and attachments as proposed with the extended warranty at a cost not to exceed $16,500.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any other further discussion? I see none. Cameron?
Abstain.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Yes. Going back to appointments and introductions, Mr. Tanzini.
You have one appointment before you tonight. It is the reappointment, are there two? There's only one in the book. My apologies, you have two before you. You have the appointment of Kate Fulton for a one-year term to end 6/30/2019, and you have the appointment of Phil Moulton to the Recreation Committee to a one-year term to expire 6/30/2019 for your consideration.
I make a motion to appoint Kate Fulton to the Capital Planning Committee through June 30th, 2019, and for Phil Moulton to the Rec Committee through June 30th, 2019.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? See none, Kim?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Beyond that, we have no introductions for you this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Waive rights of first refusal, 59 Day Mill Drive.
Since we have had no choice but to do this in the past, I make a motion to waive the right of first refusal to 59 Day Mill Drive.
Okay, I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, any other discussion? See none, Kim?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. One-day liquor license, Templeton Fish and Game.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Norman's here.
Oh, hey, Norman. How are you, sir?
Hi, Norman.
We're applying for one-day liquor license at September 1st. We are in pre-banning underground.
Okay.
One-day beer and wine license.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I make a motion to approve the one-day liquor license and live entertainment license for Templeton Fish and Game on Saturday, September 1st, 2018.
Okay, I have a motion.
Could I please have the times
From 10 to
2 p.m. to
from
10 to 2.
from 10 a.m.
Yeah.
to 2 a.m.?
2 p.m. to 10 p.m.
2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. Any other discussion for the one-day liquor license entertainment for fishing game? None? Kim?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you so much for coming in. Gonna read that. Proposed name change, Brazell Pond by,
Brazell.
Brazell Pond, excuse me, by US,
Say Brazzelli?
I couldn't even
We
read
fish
it.
there.
I'm French today, so bear with me. Uh, Does anybody, any discussion on that?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
For those that that don't know and may be watching, Brazell Pond is the one down off Drury Lane. It's in between Patriots Road and I think Brooks Village Road. It's in between there. It's a reservoir fed by Betty Spring.
Yes, yes.
I think, I don't know if, I mean, we obviously have some sort of authority to look into this, but I think we should leave this up to the public and what their thoughts are. I mean, it's been this name for a long time, so I think that's an inclusion of the public on something like that.
Yeah. Doug, you have anything?
No, I mean,
It's the owner who has requested this change?
It is.
Then I think that the owner takes precedent. And if he wants the name changed, then he should make it so. And Luann has an opinion on this?
Yes.
Not an opinion, just a history. I'll give this to you guys, just so you know
Oh,
what I'm
perfect.
talking about. So the first thing you'll see is that's the deed that shows that Mr. Lutchford owns the property.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
So it's one thing,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know.
Sorry, Luann.
That's good, sorry. I just saw it on the agenda, so I copied some stuff so I could give you guys.
So this guy owns it all.
So the deed shows that Mr. Lutchford owns the property, and if you look at the first line, it says a parcel of land including the pond and buildings on said property. So Mr. Lutchford actually approached the Board of Selectmen back in 2003. God rest his soul, Pat Dunleavy was his main contact person, and originally they were supposed to come to the Board of Selectmen, the assessors, the town clerk, and go about changing the name from Brazell Pond to Betty Pond. Fast forward, in 2016, he came into my office, showed me the letter, showed me documentation, and he wanted me to change the town maps for him. I said, I just can't do that on your word. So he sent me paperwork, which goes down to a person named Emily Caruso from DCR, because they have to get a dam permit to maintain, and he has to maintenance that dam. That's part of his deed restriction too. And according to Emily Caruso, she quotes that the original certificate of registration with the names Betty Pond and Betty Pond Dam that our office sent to Mr. Lutchford remains in effect and is one to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds for this parcel. So that's pretty much told my board that DCR is saying he can change the property if he wants so in his name. So my board voted, I want to say in June of 2016, to change the town maps. We changed maps after January the following year, so in 2017 in March, the maps did get changed on the town maps and our GIS to Betty Pond. We also told Mr. Lutchford if he had to want to change anything through the state records or any state mappings, which is what brought up that letter that you guys are reading tonight, is that if the state wants to change anything, they need the selectmen to approve this. So I don't see Mr. Lutchford here, so I figured I'd just kind of fill you guys all in on what transpired through our office. And like we told him, the town maps do say Betty Pond, but it wasn't up to us to go to the state and ask him, and that's why he went to the state, and
I
this is
see.
where we are now.
So the assessor's office and your board already changed the name?
The town map, we didn't change the name, Mr. Lutchford did.
Right.
On the action of DCR, so we updated our maps to read Betty Pond.
I make a motion to approve the name change proposed by the U.S. Board on geographic names from the pond currently known as Brazell Pond to Betty Pond.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion?
Yeah, so you can legally change a lake on your own property. So,
According to DCR, because he has to maintain the dam,
yep,
so he originally put the name in as Betty Pond Dam,
yep,
and then he said, and while I'm doing this, I want the name changed to Betty Pond. He owns,
I
what
already
is
know
it,
about this
27 acres, I think it is? Which
Yeah,
encompasses the whole pond, so I guess if it's your pond, you can name it.
because I thought in the state of Massachusetts, you couldn't own a body of water. You can't legally own water. You can own the land surrounding it, but you can't own.
Own the
Oh,
pond.
of course you can.
Only if it's a great pond. Does the public have rights?
What is it?
A great pond,
What is a great pond?
greater than 10 acres.
And that pond doesn't qualify for greater than 10 acres?
I don't
I
believe
don't
it
think
does.
so through DCR, no.
Okay, so then it is,
And all the abutters, I've checked all their deeds too, they have the rights to access to the high water mark, and that's even deeded in Mr. Letchford's name too.
Okay.
That they can go to high water, and they can use the pond, but technically, from what DCR read and what we read, it is his pond.
Okay, and the letter from DCR is included in here?
It is not a letter from DCR, it's an
it
email
was an
from
email.
Emily Caruso,
Okay.
that's in that stack.
So they've already changed it on their end. The state can't change it unless
Yeah,
we.
that's what prompted us to change
Okay.
it with us, and now the state wants to change it because of Mass GIS, is that what the letter said to you
Mhm.
guys? Yeah,
Right.
Mass GIS and everything, I guess it's an emergency point or something, and they need to change that through the whole state and through federal
Okay.
records in FEMA to relay that its name's been changed now to Betty Pond.
Is there a special document that needs to be signed by the Board of Selectmen that goes forward, or?
I don't know, are they looking?
It'll-
Just a letter of approval?
We just got the email.
Mhm.
My understanding is it's gonna be as simple tomorrow as I'll go back in and say that at the meeting of 7:25, the board took your request under consideration and voted whatever your final motion and vote.
I got you.
Yeah, and actually it says, there's still, just because you say yay and we say yay, it's still gonna go through the Massachusetts State Names Authority.
Right.
And them vote and say, yes, it's gonna change. So,
Right.
And then the USGS will finally
be done, yes.
done.
But, so that's what I have for you.
Great, well, thank you so much for explaining that.
Thank
That's
you.
great.
You're welcome.
I have better understanding.
Excellent.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I see none. Diane?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
for the future, with respect to Mr. Fort's point, this was not, and in this case, it was the project proponent happened to actually own the land and been partway through the process. Is it the board's desire that we attempt to solicit some public input prior to bringing such things to you in the future? In other words, when we get something, we can put it up on the web, propose name change,
Right.
send comments.
He owns this,
we
so
could,
there's no public
um,
input needed.
No, I understand, but perhaps if there isn't,
Right.
is it the board's desire that we attempt to get public input in the future?
So if you're saying, in the case of a great pond, as you called it,
Well, in the case of any request from USGS where they're gonna change names, we could put something up on the website, proposed name change. We could put up what it's about, hold it off for, so that at least, it's had at least 10 days or 14 days exposure to the public before we put it on your agenda.
Sure.
If that's the board's desire, we can do it, as opposed to tabling something and saying, go out and do something different.
I would think that'd be approved, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think it's just one of those things that, if something like Ladder Hill, if we were suddenly change Ladder Hill to something else, or whoever owned that piece of property, I think it's just one of those things that, since we have long-standing residents in this town who have lived here for, 60-plus years, and it's suddenly to change something like that, I think has that sentimental value, so people should be, informed or public input or something like that before any of this happens, and whoever's wishing to change that might change their opinion if somebody else has fond memories of this lake, or whatever it may be. I
Right.
think it's one of those more town, since we are a small community, we're not Boston,
I don't have a problem. So I'm hearing a consensus of the board that we should expose future such requests to to the public for some public input before placing it on your agenda for action.
That'd be great.
I mean, I'm fine with that, but my opinion is, in this example where the individual owns
Yeah,
the
he's just saying
pond,
if,
he should be able to name it whatever he wants. And if it's something that the public accesses, then yes, we should
yeah, the public
solicit
doesn't access.
the
Betty
public
Pond.
opinion. But if it's something that's, privately owned,
There is
it's
no
just-
say.
yeah, I mean, it's.
Okay, well, let me see if I can come up with something.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
That's good, Kim. Thanks, Luann.
Thanks, Luann.
Class action lawsuit regarding USA payments in lieu of taxes. Mr. Tanzini?
The federal government pays a number of communities across the nation a payment in lieu of taxes. There is a community out west which has sued the federal government over a change in the formula for that particular community. It's as much as $1 million.
Okay.
And there is a class action lawsuit coming out of Utah to recover the balance of these underpayments. For us, it is not going to be a great deal of money. We were 2257, possibly underpaid by, we have absolutely no idea how much, if anything at all. But the question becomes whether or not, as we did with the opioids, want to join this class action lawsuit to be part of whatever recovery might be made to us.
Okay.
Well, I don't see any downside to this.
Yes.
I make a motion that the town of Templeton opt in to the federal class action lawsuit for payments in lieu of taxes, and for the chairman to sign the class action opt-in notice form.
I have a motion, I have a second.
Second.
Motion, second. Any other discussion? See none. Cameron?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Snow and ice planning and status and interim DPW director, Mr. Tanzini.
I've given you a memo which lays out at some length the steps that we had taken. First, to look at the possibility of sharing management with some of our surrounding towns. We did not get any response to that. We then mailed out to 6 groups that I was able to identify a request for providing us with a part-time interim DPW director while we went through the search. And I will tell you that that was advertised 2 weeks ago, I believe. Perhaps it's one, but it's got a couple of weeks left to go. We have started to see some applications coming in. But we have some issues that we really need to address, and continuing to run as we are really is not a workable situation. So we got initially two proposals. I did chase down Alan's suggestion, the Bay State Roads Program. They don't provide consulting directly on snow and ice control, but their staff does have a separate independent consulting firm. So we also received today, which Holly gave to you earlier this evening before coming into this meeting, a letter of interest from a former town manager. So I'd like to deal with the issue first, if we might, Mr. Chairman, of the snow and ice control program. As you know, our sand pit has been played out, I'm told. We have basically 1 year of sand left. We have this winter's material left. By roughly October 1, we need someone who's come in front of you, spoken to the routes, spoken to the equipment, spoken to the issue of, what are we going to use since the sand's gone? Are we going to stay with sand and salt, 3-to-1? What's that going to cost? Are we going to switch to alternative materials? If so, what are those costs? And we'd like to have you part of that decision, because that will then drive the budget preparation. Mr. Smith's proposal, he's now done this for Avon, Sudbury, and Dover. These are all Massachusetts communities. His rate is $75 an hour. He thought he could complete this work within $5,000. I've asked for a little bit more, not to exceed $5,500, but I think that if we could get him started, we can then move on to the management where we've got some other options for you. But I do believe that with the exception of Mr. Jacobs' proposal, it's really the best way to go at this point. Happy to answer any questions. We've spent quite a bit of time on this. It's been a bit of a challenge. So if it's agreeable to the board, I think splitting this into the snow and ice issue and then interim management might prove beneficial, or we could take up the additional management person that came in late today, who is not able to undertake the snow and ice control. Just, they don't have that depth of knowledge. They're a general manager.
So, if I may. So these three folks here are really just for the snow and ice. They're not looking to do the overall.
No,
management.
the first two would propose to do the full overall snow and ice.
But not the management of the department?
And the management
And-
as
okay.
well. The gentleman that came in late this afternoon would do general management,
Right, but not.
and
Not
Chainsaw
snow.
Technologies would do snow and ice.
Mhm.
The first firm would be extremely expensive
Mhm.
and far exceed our budget
Yep.
of available dollars.
$100 an hour.
The person who came in this afternoon has general management experience and some knowledge of the area.
Mhm.
And I think could probably do the general management, project management, oversight issues. Chainsaw Technology would be able to give us a very discipline-specific overview of the snow and ice control analysis.
And for these other towns, Avon, Sudbury, Dover, that's what they did, was just the snow and ice?
Routes
Control.
and snow and ice.
Yep.
They analyzed their routes, and in Sudbury, eliminated a number of routes and went with contracting some of the routes out.
Which I think would be a good idea.
Yeah, I like that proposal.
Me too. And he's a former highway superintendent, which
Yes,
would prove beneficial to us.
he's,
He wouldn't
he's,
overdo our
considered
budget, he
the,
wouldn't
if you will, the
underdo
guru
our budget.
on this subject at the
The
Bay State
Total midline.
roads program, which is sort of the go-to resource for the local communities. I mean, when you start getting up into the bigger towns, they're in a different world. But Bay State Roads Technology Transfer Center at the University of Massachusetts is really sort of the go-to for communities, $18,000 people and down.
Well, Sudbury's a little out of our.
Kim, you have any
Avon is too.
questions?
Well, but the fact that they've done
I
the
know.
analysis for them
Yeah, for,
means
yeah,
they'd be able to do ours
yeah,
adequately.
right, quickly.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
so what is the long-term strategy for the DPW department itself? In
Well,
terms of director position and
We've advertised.
Yep.
We have, I don't know, 3 or 4 in the first few days here. 3 or 4 in the first few days.
okay.
It'll be out there for a month in total that's elapsed. And we're hopeful it's challenged, given what we pay. But interestingly, in conversation with one of the folks that I talked with about interim, he's not retired till December. He said, boy, if I could go to a town where the public works was only the roads, cemeteries, the parks, and the buildings, I'd be in heaven. Because he hates the sewer and water side of it. So, it's going to be hard to see what really attracts somebody. And when people have asked us what the pay is going to be, we've said low to upper 70s, depending upon qualifications, depending upon education. We paid 72. We would have paid a little bit more based upon merit and cost of living. So we may be scratching for a few more dollars at the end here. If that doesn't work, then we'll have to re-advertise and go back out. We advertised probably 30-some locations. Were we able to get it out to the Mass Highways Association? And we have one or two other resources we're gonna try to tap into yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything else to add?
I'm sorry, John?
Does anyone else have anything else to add to?
I make a motion to approve the town administrator engaging Mr. Michael Smith, DBA Chainsaw Strategies, in an amount not to exceed $5,500 to carry out an analysis of our snow and ice control operations as outlined in the proposal.
And I will second
I
that.
have a motion and I have a second. Thank you, Doug. Any other discussion concerning that? I see none. Kim? Yep. Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. When's the projected start date for him, Mr. Tanzini?
I'll contact him tomorrow and, try to connect with him over the next few days and let you know.
All right, and obviously, once he gets started, some feedback would be great.
Yep.
As far as how he's moving forward.
With respect to the interim DPW director, I would request that you approve the appointment of Mark Shea for interim DPW director at a rate of $50 per hour, not to exceed 20 hours per week. Based upon the 3 resumes and the pricing I was able to put before you,
Okay.
that's our best choice. Otherwise, it's going back to the drawing board.
No, I think he's
We've kind of
good
stretched
choice.
me trying to stay in touch with Chet and
I got you.
do both things, especially when you see our other staffing issues in the memo, you get a chance to.
No, I got you.
I make a motion to approve Mark, oh my God, Mark Shea as interim DPW director at not to exceed 20 hours per week at, I'm sorry,
At $50 per
$50
hour.
per hour. I couldn't keep all that in my head.
I will second
A
that also.
motion, and I have a second, thank you. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
have we checked his references?
I've known him for 30 years, so if
So-
someone
so
else
you're a
wants
reference
to
to
do.
him? Okay. Well, that's good enough, as
So
long as we
someone
know
else,
who
well, I
this
mean, you know,
gentleman is.
he had a challenge in Castleton, but they've had a revolving door up there. He was Winchendon, Board of Selectmen chairman. If someone would else like to do that, I'm not sure what I might be jaundiced in me doing that.
Would you like me to amend my motion if you would like to check his references?
No, I trust Carter, if Carter knows him,
I mean, he did have a challenge in Castleton, as, managers do from place to place.
I just didn't know if this was some guy who reached out to you, because the way the letter's addressed here is it sounds
He-
like,
He did,
heard to the
but I've
grapevine.
known him going back to Winchendon, Reedsboro, Castleton.
and then we're comfortable with him, I mean, he lives in Pulteney, Vermont. I'm not sure how far out that is, but it's.
He's gonna couch surf at Friends
Okay.
in Winchendon.
Okay. All right, works for me.
Well, couch surf.
I have a motion and a second and a cup, sir. Excellent.
Isn't that what you call it? That's what
It
we
is,
call it.
it is. I have a motion. Any other discussion? I see none. Kim?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Purchase and financing of a fire engine.
I would ask the deputy chief to come forward
Sure.
and present on this matter.
Good evening.
Deputy?
First of all, I'd like to apologize for Chief Dickey, who had previous commitments. He was unable to be here, so
We're happy that you're here.
here I am. That's why I have the job, I guess. You all got the letter that he sent over with his recommendations. The only modification really to the letter is the information from, on page 2, the information on the E1 was not exactly correct. That was not the last quote that we had got from them. And I do have a copy for you if I can
Sure.
give that to you. I don't unfortunately have a copy for everybody that it more closely reflects. It more closely reflects the correct estimate.
Oh. It's 509, right?
Yeah.
See it?
So basically, the search went out off of the Houston Galveston purchasing program. We looked to get estimates on a couple of quotes on a couple of vehicles that met what we, as officers of the fire department, felt would best serve the needs of the community within the amount of money that was approved to purchase that. And we got three pretty comparable pieces of equipment. And then we began the research on the equipment. Personally speaking, we own 2 KME pieces of equipment here in town. And I think Mr. Terrazini can attest how much money we've spent on the ladder truck in the past 2 years. I would not recommend that we purchase another piece of equipment manufactured by KME. I have always been a big fan of E1. Back from, back in the 80s when my experience with them first started, until I realized that 10 or so years ago, they folded as an organization that I remember and have been purchased out by the parent company of KME. So it's a KME, HME, and E1, 3 different name brands that all the parts come from the same place. Then we did some research on the Toyne, which is fairly new to New England, but they've been in business for 75 years, more so out towards the Midwest, and they are making their way up this way. Sterling has one. There's a few other ones in the area. Chief Dickey was actually able to go and put his hands on one and see one up in New Hampshire somewhere. I don't remember.
Tufton
Tuftonboro. Thank you, sir.
one town over, yes,
Yep,
sir.
he actually went to their station and saw their truck. It was a 2011, and he said it looked like it just rolled off the showroom floor. It was in beautiful condition. The paint was still stuck everywhere that it needed to be. The undercarriage was clean, the frame was good. And we've talked to, he reached out to every fire chief in Massachusetts that has a truck, and they all would say that they would purchase another one. In fact, I want to say maybe it was Sterling or somebody close by is actually ordering another one. So,
On the Toyne?
on the Toyne,
Yeah.
yeah. Yep. Their pricing is pretty aggressive because they want to get into this area. I believe when you talk to the chief at, what is it, did you say Tuftonboro?
Tuftonboro, yes, sir.
Their distributor up in that area wouldn't even be able to match the price that they're offering us through our distributor out of Connecticut. They're just very aggressive into getting into this area, so
That might work in our favor.
that's
I
it.
don't
in a
think-
nutshell.
But you can look at that. That's with the E1.
Any specific questions? I've got a whole lot of resources, but that's it. That's a summary.
Well, obviously, this has been approved by capital planning, I would assume,
Yep,
Yeah,
for a fire truck.
for a fire truck.
and not a backhoe.
Not a
Not a
backhoe.
pickup truck towing a trailer.
Not towing a water thing, right?
Big jug of water.
Yeah. The fire brigade.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
for maintenance of this vehicle, did we look into what it would require for maintenance? Are we gonna be doing it in-house? Does this require to go to them for maintenance? Did we inquire about any of that?
There's 2 different options. The distributor of this truck is out of North Smithfield, Rhode Island,
Okay.
which is very local as far as fire apparatus goes. Most of the, not most, almost all the stuff that we do to our fire apparatus has to be done by a fire apparatus service company.
Certified or, yeah.
I think who do we use, Bulldog maybe now or something that comes in and does our stuff in-house,
Okay.
which they would be able to do, or any warranty issues or whatever.
So there's no barrier between getting this,
How long is
although the
the
pricing's aggressive, it's a short-run savings,
Yeah.
but long run, it's still gonna be the same as if we went with any other.
Yep.
Okay.
How long is the warranty for? And what exactly does it cover?
It has a quote-unquote bumper-to-bumper warranty for 2 years, and then
Is it 2 years or so many miles, or is it
It's
just?
a 2-year, 2 years, 2 years from the date we receive it. It has a 10-year warranty on all the plumbing, and it has a 10-year warranty on the paint. It has a 20-year warranty on the body, which is a galvanized steel. I take that back. It's 2 years, 36,000-mile warranty on the truck and cab, which 36,000 miles is almost impossible to achieve with a fire engine in this community.
That's your daily commuter.
Hey, one never knows.
Why is that truck out again?
You might just all want to keep taking it first, Ben. What do you like most about, like, what was the biggest attraction for you to this particular fire
Well,
truck?
Basically, all three manufacturers could provide a relatively similar truck. There's some specifics we looked for in the price structure that we had. There's a couple of things that we need for the safety of the community and the insurance, the ISO rating that
Yep.
we need. 1,000 gallons of water, 15,000 gallon per minute. Those are two pretty standard with a first response fire engine piece.
Okay.
A couple of our other trucks have what is known as a side mount pump panel. You get out of the driver's side of the truck and there's all your controls right there.
Yeah.
This particular truck is a top mount, so you get out of the cab and you walk up to a catwalk and you stand up in the middle of the truck.
Yeah.
That is increased safety for the pump operator
It is.
because he's not standing in the street.
Oh.
And it's increased safety for everybody else on the fire ground because the pump operator has a 360-degree view. He can see the fire ground wherever it's going on. There's been numerous instances, and I've experienced a lot of them because a lot of my career has been pump operations. Well, just by geographic location, we pull up to a scene, I get out of the truck, and the fire engine is between me and the fire.
So you can't
So I
see
can't see
anything.
what's going on.
Okay.
So I have to trust radio communications or walk around the corner or whatever. And one of the trucks that we have out of the Bonneville station is a top mount. And just recently, we were using the hose off the front, and I could stand right in the truck and see
Well, that's
everything that the crew was doing, so. And it gets the guy out of the road, you know, if you're on a response on Route 2, or if they don't close the road, if you're on that driver's side, you could be right out close to the travel lane, so this way you can stand
Okay.
up out of the way.
Okay.
Okay. Are you gonna give us a ride in this?
You can come for a ride.
Excellent. All right.
Oh, just Cameron?
So,
The town has strict policy on taking civilians for rides, so. You guys will have to approve your own rides.
Nice.
I make a motion to approve the lease agreement for a towing Spartan fire truck for a total equipment cost of $505,500 and for the chairman to sign the lease documents.
Have motion, do I have a second? Second. Have motion, a second. Any other further discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
As I'm looking at the lease documents, I would respectfully ask that the motion include your authority and the authority of the clerk to execute Exhibit A, which is the resolution of the governing body with respect to the lease.
I will amend my motion to include what the town administrator just stated. Please, Holly, write that down.
Yes.
And the lease is just so you'll know, is undergoing final review with council. We had a few
Yes.
questions this afternoon.
Mhm.
He's working with bond counsel on some of the language.
Understood.
So hopefully we won't have to come back to you, but we just want you to be aware of that.
Okay, I have a motion, and a second. Any other, you second, right, Doug?
Yes, I did.
I have motion, and a second. Any other discussion
Do you amend your
concerning-
second?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion concerning the fire apparatus? I see none. Cameron?
yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Dave?
A resounding yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Just so you'll know, we'll be here in time for either Memorial Day or 4th of July next year.
Mr. Payne,
About the size of it.
please, I'm so happy.
To execute
Yeah, thanks for coming in. I appreciate it.
Good luck.
For the
Glad you got
safety
it.
of this
Get that
community.
on this.
Hold you to that, right.
Deputy Payne, excuse me.
Yeah, they've given us a lead time of just under 360 days, but they say that that.
Oh, wow.
Get longer.
It's an overestimate on their end, yeah.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Molly,
Yeah.
how are you feeling?
Let's see. Discussion regarding personnel policy, update revenue streams, goals, objectives, settings, and school relations, which is what I put on here. After closer review, I mean, I want more discussion to happen amongst this board, and also to the people of Templeton. So, what I'd like, if possible, if I can, I'm not gonna say move this, but I'd like to put this at the next workshop, if possible,
Which is,
which will be, I don't have the schedule in front of me.
I'll have to check the
I don't have
schedule.
the schedule in front of me. The only reason why I want to do that, it gives the other select board members the opportunity to provide, some solid input and some solid work into some of their ideas and platforms and how we can, be more proactive, I guess, as a group. If anybody has any other discussion.
Here, here.
I mean, does that sound okay with everybody?
Mhm.
Fine with that.
Does that sound okay?
so you're looking to table this?
Well, I'm not looking to table, I'm looking to move it to the workshop so we can,
Yeah, you're tabling it to the workshop, which is,
Don't we have one coming up in August?
I believe.
no, we have two meetings, August 8th and August 22nd.
I'm sorry, Cameron, I can't hear
We have
you.
a meeting August 8th and August 22nd, which are both business meetings.
Yeah, but I thought like August 11th or something, wasn't that a workshop?
August 11th is a Saturday, but I thought we had a workshop in August.
We can certainly schedule
I'm
one.
looking at the calendar right now, so
I thought the decision had been to take July and August off, but we can certainly schedule a special one for August 15th, given the interest this matter's drawn.
that would be.
I would like
I would
that.
okay with that. You okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
yeah, can we have a date?
August 15th.
August 15th, he said.
Okay. And the agenda is going to be personnel policy updates, revenue streams, goals and objective setting, and school relations.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
Can we strike school relations and change that to, I mean, it's not just the school, it's other communities, it's businesses, it's our relations with pretty much every other public entity out there. Anything that's not us. Cause I looked up how many businesses we have in Templeton. We have just over 300, I think it's
Mhm.
305.
That's right.
You know how many we communicated with last year?
How much we communicated with?
Yeah, yeah.
As the Board of Selectmen?
Yeah, how many we talked to, chatted, sent letters to, inquired? Zero.
Do you know how many I chatted with?
Well, no, I mean, because we do
Lots of them.
We do,
I'm not saying anything personally, I'm saying as a board, I mean, we haven't,
Okay, so you want to add businesses?
yeah, just relate, community
should-
relationships, I mean, what can we do to improve our standing with
okay,
employers in town,
Okay, so
potential
I wrote that down.
businesses,
Yep, I got that.
schools?
So can we also add, our relationship to our employees?
Yeah, wouldn't that be considered under the personnel policy, but,
No, those personnel policy updates.
oh, okay,
That's way different than how we relate to our employees.
so yeah, that would be, yeah, I would agree with that then.
Okay.
I'd also like to ask if each one of our Board of Selectmen have read the Selectmen's Handbook?
Yes.
Selectmen's handbook as in the one provided by the state?
Yep.
Not recently.
Well, I think that we should take that chapter by chapter.
I don't know if I'm gonna sit down and read through that, that's like.
That's our job.
Yeah,
Well, if that's our job to do it individually and personally, just like open meeting
Well, I think
law.
that there are I'm gonna read it, and there are pieces of that that I would like to discuss then.
okay. That's fine, we can take that up.
Will certainly not be here for an entire reading. of
There,
that.
I'm sorry, Cameron?
pub-
I said I most certainly will not be here for an entire reading of that book.
I didn't say I would read the entire book.
I think,
So the wise-ass comments can stop,
okay, enough,
just saying.
enough. So the policy and the procedures,
I guess that'll have to be stricken from the
the
record.
policy and procedures for the Board of Selectmen also, which has also been under review for some time now, which you still have, correct?
That's Carter and I's job.
Selectmen policy?
Yeah, the Selectmen policy? Oh, is
Yeah,
that yours?
Yeah, that was supposed to be my
Okay.
job, and someone took it over. But
Okay.
I'll be taking that on with Carter,
Okay,
now that I'm back. She's back.
okay.
Carter has a question.
Yes, Carter.
Might I suggest that the
This-
various supplemental suggestions made here tonight, if anyone has additionals, if I could get them by next Tuesday,
Sure.
I can try to do a draft agenda for the workshop. You can then tweak whatever titling
Okay.
you want to, but also to lay out what I suspect is the, because this, when you gave it to me, Mr. Chairman, wasn't the actual setting of goals and objectives, was a process, so that
Right.
the September workshop retreat, the annual retreat, perhaps might be more productive, meeting some of the concerns that have been raised.
That's right.
If that makes some sense, then you'll have the meeting of the 8th to tweak that agenda and be clear about what you're trying to accomplish on the
Right.
15th. If that meets with the board's approval.
Does that sound okay with you?
No. Nope, I think these should all be discussed much earlier than September. Because September, October, I mean, we have contract renewals coming up in October. I mean, the timeline for that, if we push this off till the last second, we'll be in a situation where we won't feel comfortable and we'll have to make pressured decisions and discussions. I think if we get ahead of this early, I think that's the most appropriate thing to do. One meeting August 8th, if we can hammer out half of this, then we can do just one more meeting after that, and we can finish it. It all depends on how ready we are to come to these and have the discussions, and how well we are prepared, and that we're not showing up unprepared and wasting everybody's time. If we show up prepared, do our own homework, our own research, these discussions should be pretty thought-provoking.
So earlier we said August 15th, you just said August 8th.
I'm sorry, yes, August 8th is our first business, so August 15th, I'm
August
sorry.
15th. All right, so if there's anything else that needs to be added, if you could send it to Mr. Tenzini. And as far as the process of the workshop, as far as the goal planning and stuff like that we'll have a small discussion on the 15th. And we'll move forward from there. Does anybody have any other questions? Mr. Tenzini, anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody, any board or staff member comments at this time? Yes, sir.
Just for the audience, we were able to fill one of the member-at-large positions on the capital planning committee, but we do have a vacancy there. That will kick off September, October, very important
Typically.
committee from our financial planning. We have openings on the Economic Development and Industrial Corporation. Very important to try to move economic development forward and new growth. And as you may recall from the last meeting, there remains a vacancy on the Housing Authority. As always, people can check the website, but those are the three that I would bring to people's attention tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
No, I have none.
Any other comments? Board member comments?
Yes.
Yes.
Since the speech, I've gotten a lot of feedback from the community. Several people have reached out to me and said that my approach to the speech was both tactful and also thought-provoking on that nature. I think by that speech and the feedback that I had gotten feedback from people that I never would have thought would even reached out to me and talked to me. And I think it was something on a lot of people's minds that was just not discussed openly and publicly. So with that being said, I really still want to keep that fresh in everybody's mind that we still need to strive to do the best we can and set this town a course for a better resolution.
Okay. Okay, do we need to go into executive session, Mr. Tanzini?
Please, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Request for executive session per Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 21.2, contract negotiate with non-union personnel, town administrator. We will be coming back in, but not to vote, just to close the adjourn the regular scheduled meeting. Thank you for coming.